Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spirit, the stimulating program initiative for retirees that inspires thought. I'm Rebbitzin Judy Steinig, Director of Community Programs for the Orthodox Union, and it's my honor to coordinate and host this program. Spirit was started a number of years ago as an on-site program, and now we're very happy to present it as an on-site program for retirees, not yet retirees, empty nesters, baby boomers, sandwich generation parents, and seniors. All of us who are looking for educational, spiritual, physical, and intellectual growth. Since we are all, everyone, still sheltering in because of the COVID-19, Spirit is the perfect way for each one of us to engage in a virtual setting. Today's session will deal with a very important topic that each one of us addresses every day: family relationships. During these challenging times of COVID, these situations have become even more complicated than they usually are. We are so happy to welcome to the Spirit Forum a professional who has tremendous knowledge and experience in this field. Mrs. Faye Wilbur, LCSWR, is the Director of Community Relations for Mishkan of the Jewish Board and is a therapist in private practice in Brooklyn, New York. Her complete and comprehensive bio can be found in any of the emails as well as on the website that you've received on this program. I've known Faye for many years, both personally and professionally, and served with her on the United Task Force, a group of mental health and social service organizations. Mrs. Wilbur has presented for me in many settings. We are so honored that she could take time out of her very busy schedule to prepare and present this session. It's an honor to turn our virtual podium over to her. Thank you so much, Faye.
Hi, good morning. I'm just going to share the screen. It's so lovely to see some friends who I haven't seen in a long time and some names that I recognize from a long time ago. And when Rebbitzin Steinig, who is an absolutely wonderful human being, and I started talking about doing this presentation, we just picked a date randomly. And then when I saw we were doing this during the 9 days, I thought, this is what Hashem needed us to be talking about. We need to be talking about relationships, because it uses the phrase sinat chinam about the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, both in the Talmud, Yerushalmi, and Bavli. So what more appropriate thing to talk about? And with COVID-19 and all these rules that don't stay consistent and aren't necessarily evidence-based, it can lead to all sorts of drama. So I would also in advance like to thank the people who sent in questions. I hope we address them all. And at the end, you'll have the PowerPoint with my contact information. Please don't be shy. Contact me with questions, thoughts, concerns. Okay, we're going to start with love. That's a good place to start. In this slide, I talked about adult children, but it's really anybody we love or loves us, and how are we all dealing with the rules? So some people have strict rules for themselves, and their family are more lenient. And then where does that go? And who's going to argue about it? And do your children tell you you're allowed to go into stores or not allowed to go into stores? Do they tell you what you should do or what you shouldn't do? Do you tell your parents what they should do and shouldn't do? It's really very complicated because the message is being given from a place of love and care and concern. It's not being done most of the time out of maliciousness, with a need to be nasty, with a need to control anybody. But everybody has these rules and everybody wants to do them differently. I was talking to a colleague last night who is also a therapist, and she says some of her clients want to come and be seen in person. Most of us are either talking to our clients on the phone or we're Zooming with them. And she said to me, she says, the first people I'm not going to social distance with are my children. So she and her husband have opted to continue to social distance, whereas some of her children would be okay getting closer, others would not. And they have their rules, and everybody has the rules, and everybody feels very strongly about their rules. And Some people think everybody else should follow the same rules they do, and it doesn't work that way. We all need to figure it out. So sometimes adult children, nieces, nephews, cousins want to come visit. And you might say, well, we're happy to visit with you. We, can put out a few chairs in front of the house. We can put a few chairs in the back. And you are not allowed to come in and use our bathroom. So then do they visit or not? Do they say, oh, you're being ridiculous. That's so silly of you. Do you wear masks and they don't wear masks? So all of these things are so complicated and can really get people very agitated. Some people need more rules than others, and some people are living with people they haven't lived with in a long time. So the phrase late to launch children is talking about the kids who might be in their 30s, in their 40s, who are living at home with their parents, might have never moved out, and are permanent residents. So they are adults. They have their rules. They have the way they want to follow the rules, and they might be different than their parents since before this started. And now this just exacerbates the situation. There might be children who were independent and came home to their parents because they would prefer to be living with someone rather than staying in their apartments alone. So now you have people who have been running their own lives, and now suddenly they're home, and everybody has a different expectation of what that should look like. What does it mean if you're living back in with your parents? Do you get to follow your own rules? You're 55 years old, and now your 75-year-old mother or father is telling you you can do this and can't do this. Makes it really complicated. When you have, I work at Mishkan, so Mishkan is the division of the Jewish board where we have up to 130 people living with us, and we have community programs and residences. So we have seen an interesting shift in referrals. There are families who have their special needs adult children living with them. And with the pandemic, nobody's going anywhere. Nobody's going to work. Nobody's going to sheltered workshops. No one is going to day programs. Everybody is just home alone. And we spoke with a couple last week who have their 20-year-old daughter living with them. And they said they were thinking of having her move into one of our homes when she finished school, which would be in a year or two, because they thought that'll be a wonderful transition. She'll graduate from school. She'll start a new life. She'll move in with us at Mishkan. They'll visit. And they said now that there's no school and she's been home full time, they're thinking now would be a better time for her to move in. So what makes it a better time? A better time is life is harder when none of us are leaving the house. Well, I leave the house. Since we're residents, I'm actually sitting in my office at Mishkan. But when people are all together all the time, it's very, very difficult. So following rules, knowing what the rules are. Mishkan has rules. We all wear our mask whenever we're near anyone. Since I'm all alone in this office, I'm not wearing it. But lots of people don't like wearing masks. It is clearly nobody's favorite activity. But people do it for different reasons. Some people do it because it's the law. In some states, I know this is not just a one-state Zoom conference. So some states it's the law. In some states it's recommended. So some people are rule followers and some people in general break rules. So if you're not a rule follower and suddenly they have new rules, then it's hard to follow. If you have a hard time following rules, asking children to wear masks is harder. Trying to figure out how to manage is also very, very difficult. And how do we explain to people what rules we have that they need to follow? So I started by talking about family. And again, I used family in the broadest terms. And for lots of us, our friends are family. or many times our friends are more important to us than family are. How did we choose our friends? How did we become friends? How long do we have each other in each other's hearts? It's so important to remember these kinds of things. We have shared interests, we have shared concerns. Usually we have similar views and opinions. Now it might be different. A relative sent me an email. She was all frustrated because she has one political view and one of her oldest, dearest friends holds another political view. And she emailed me saying, how does she help her friend understand and see the light? Make her understand that what she believes right now isn't working. It's just not working. Her beliefs are wrong. Maybe her beliefs are wrong for my cousin. That's very possible. They're not necessarily wrong for her friend. So what do? How do we say to people, I love you, I cherish you, you are important to me. I can't wait until we can sit and share a Shabbos meal together. I can't wait till we will hopefully be able to attend each other's smachot. Won't that be wonderful? But right now we can't, and right now we might not agree with each other, and that's just the way it is. So you might have children, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, who you want to visit, but you're not comfortable visiting. And they're saying to you, come on, you're being too strict. This is ridiculous. You can come over. It's not a big problem anymore. So you have them pressuring you to come visit. Then you might mention to a friend that you're just not going to visit people right now. And then you have your friends saying to you, come on, what's wrong with you? It's okay. And then maybe you have your parents saying to you, come on, you're too strict. This is ridiculous. Or the other way around. You are perfectly happy and inviting people over to sit at your Shabbos table with you. Maybe they come and then you're having a lovely Shabbos meal together. And other people are saying to you, what? Are you crazy? This is ridiculous. Don't you know you're a danger to other people? Why are you doing this? This is absurd. So everybody has really strong opinions about, in general, Jews have strong opinions, but I think this COVID experience has really brought out lots of different personality traits that we might never have seen. And it's so dangerously getting in the way. I have a rule. I don't talk about mask wearing. I don't want to talk about it. I do my thing, you do your thing. I'm not going to tell you you're right. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. It's not about what I think. It's just ridiculous. But whatever it is that people do, they love to try to engage in a conversation about it. And it's just like, no, I just don't want to talk about it. I'm not going to tell you how to behave. You're not going to tell me how to behave. You might tell me I'm ridiculous. It's okay. It's not the first time in my life people have told me I'm doing something crazy, ridiculous, absurd. And it's so stressful to have everybody telling you what to do, how to do it, what to think, how to think. Stress. There we go. What happens when we feel stress? And again, you know, like I have a short list of some of the symptoms of stress. This is clearly not a comprehensive list of stress, but I thought it was a good place to start. So the pictures I picked are because stress is part of our life forever. It is not something that comes and goes, or it is something that comes and goes, but it's always part of who we are. There are very few people who are privileged enough to go through life with zero stress. Because I'm not sure how you manage to avoid stress. So now we have the COVID virus, and everybody's feeling this low-grade agitation. As someone said to me recently, they said, you know, when was the last time you had a conversation with someone where the virus did not come up at all? It was really hard for me to think about that. I could not remember when the last time I was where we just talked about something or anything where the virus didn't come up. Even something very basic where I spoke to a friend yesterday, she sent me a picture, her daughter's a Kala, which is just absolutely wonderful. So I said, so what are your plans? And the usual chit chat. So she said to me, well, because of the virus, we're going to have the wedding out at a golf club. She said, that way, the people who are only comfortable being outdoors will be able to stay with us for the outdoor part of the simcha. And the people who are comfortable going indoors will do the outdoor and the indoor part. So I thought, that is really very smart. She's trying very hard to accommodate everyone. But the conversation about a simcha used to start with, well, we're going to have this many people and we're going to wear this color and this problem and that problem. And now it's, how do we try to be respectful of everyone? And she was saying, like, she's so grateful she is the mother of the Kala because at least she doesn't have to think about an ufraf. And what do you do then? Do you have an initial? Do you have it outdoors? How many people do you invite? Do you not invite? Do you serve meals? Do you not serve meals? Everything is much more stressful than it used to be. And simchas always have that little bit of stress attached to it. So when we feel this low grade level of stress, many, many parts of our life are impacted. Some people are eating more, some people are eating less, some people are sleeping well, some people are sleeping poorly, some people are sleeping more, some people are less. People are just sad and unhappy part of the time. And this is for some people not chronic, but for some people it is chronic. And the worry about the present and the future is really very hard. When we've had other crises, there was a beginning, a middle, and an end. Think back to your English teachers teaching you about writing a composition. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. So with the virus, there was a beginning. We don't know if this is the middle. We don't know if we're closer to the beginning, if we're closer to the middle, if we're closer to the end. We have no idea. And it changes from day to day. This updated list about which state is okay, which state is not okay, where was there an outbreak, which country is doing okay. Checking with El Al, when are they going to start? Are people under quarantine? Are they not quarantining? If you drive through a state, do you have to quarantine? All of these things are so nebulous. And when things are nebulous and vague, they're much, much more stressful. It's just much harder to manage without knowing. So we have to always think about that. And how does our stress impact everyone else? So, if we're cranky, and I love that word because it doesn't matter if you're the little baby in the tub or you're the older person, we all get cranky. And when we are cranky, we impact other people. So one of the things I don't think I put on any of the slides is the importance of being self-aware. Like, we need to be in touch with ourselves. We need to know what we're doing, how we're feeling, because if we can figure that out, then we can know how we might relate to people, how we might not want to relate to people. That old saying, I want to be alone? Sometimes you want to be alone and sometimes you don't. So the sense of isolation, being ignored, is the worst feeling ever. There are many people who are all alone. They talk about real estate now, how people are looking to move out of apartments. They are looking to buy homes. They are looking to have a little bit of, what's that quote from The Magic Garden? A plot of earth or a little patch of earth. Everybody wants a little outdoor space and to be recognized. So if you know anyone who is living all alone, making that phone call to say, how are you? What's going on? I'm sitting here in New York. We're having a heat wave. How is it out by you in Texas? I'm sure it's hotter. How are you managing? Or what are you doing with yourself? How are you keeping busy? It's so wonderful. At Mishkan, we've had 3 different people volunteer to be volunteers for us. One woman is a retired music teacher. She's going to start doing Zoom Shabbos parties with our individuals. She said she misses being in the chorus that she used to be in, and now she wants to do something else. Another woman said she's home with her son, she's working virtually, and she just keeps thinking, I could make phone calls. I could call people and say, good Shabbos, how was your week? So we can take our feelings of being alone and isolated, and we can use them and turn them around. You know, perspective is really important. How do we look at the situation? And what do we do with it? You know, we were given the situation. We didn't choose to be in it. This is not something I think most people would want, but we're doing it. I was talking to a friend of mine who is also a social worker, and he was saying he loves social isolating. He's just not a party animal. So this works out really well for him. He can zoom in, he can zoom out, he can take himself off the camera that nobody knows he's not paying attention anymore. And for him, it's working, but he is working. He's not all alone. And so it's so important to just think about who could you call. And even if you're always the caller, because sometimes it can be so hard to be giving, and other times it can be so hard to receiving. We're planning to have, Jewish Board has an annual Bikur Cholim conference. So the Bikur Cholim conference has been in person, where people sit and learn how to do Bikur Cholim well, how to make it gratifying for the volunteer. And we were talking about how important it is to think about the people who are giving and to make sure we don't get compassion fatigue, and that we're thinking about all of the things, the stress it is for the giver and the receiver. And one of the things that we were particularly focusing on is people who until now have always been the giver. They've always been the one to be able to help the other person to reach out, and suddenly people are giving to them and it's really hard. I jokingly said to someone, or not so jokingly, that one of the hardest things about the coronavirus is they told me I'm old. Like, that's not okay. They tell people, oh, if you're over 55, you're suddenly old. Or if you're over 60, you're in the next category. Or if you're over 70, you're in the higher risk category. Well, that's an assault of people's self-esteem. So thinking about somebody sitting all alone and being told they're old and not useful anymore is something to think about. And how can you impact it and how can you change it? How do we express ourselves? So words are so important. Actually, I think I should go back to the stress one. What I didn't put on here, because I did this PowerPoint before life became even more stressful, I think, for Jews, is all this increase in anti-Semitism. And I don't think that's something that can be minimized. And I don't know how many people have thought about what this increase in anti-Semitism is doing for our Holocaust survivors and first-generation survivors. And what does it mean to suddenly have all this going on with us, and hearing the increase in anti-Semitism and the behavior and the language that's being used against us, and people saying this is what it was like in the old days, in those bad, bad old days. And what are we doing with that stress? Are we mobilizing ourselves? Again, how do we use what's going on to take better care of ourselves? So when you talk about reaching out, saying to a survivor, how are you doing? Have you thought about this? It might be very triggering for them. It might be reminding them of the reason they needed to run away and escape to America. And that might be a really terrible place to be. So that was just something else that I thought of that I didn't include. Believe Nedar, I'll try to add it before Judy sends out the PowerPoint. Okay, so I talked about staying focused and then I went on a tangent, perfect. But how do you express yourself when you're talking to someone? So if someone is talking to you about whatever it is, and they're trying to have a conversation, don't try to change it back to something they might be not interested in talking about. Stay focused on what you're talking about. If you're anxious, you can say, right now I can't talk about this. This is just too hard for me. This is too stressful. I have too much on my mind. Using the I word, I'm not comfortable with you coming to my house and not wearing a mask. Is very different than saying, you are putting me in danger by not wearing a mask, because the underlying message there is you are a terrible person. That's not the message you want to give to somebody you care about. It shouldn't be the message to give to anyone. But the I word, I do it differently than you do. We all do things a little bit differently. It's okay. Unless we're a danger to ourselves or someone else, then it's okay to do things differently. It's not okay to impose it and to be judgmental. Saying, if someone is telling you, you need to not do X, Y, and Z, you're allowed to say, that feels unnecessary to me. I'm not sure that that's something I need to do. And vice versa, that's something I'm okay doing. So don't muddy the waters with old business. We have long-term relationships with people, right? Whether they're family or friends. Some of us are lucky enough to still have friends who we met in kindergarten, 3rd grade, 10th grade. We went to sleepaway camp with them. Who knows? If we're fortunate, we've been lucky to keep adding friends throughout our lifetime. And with good friends, with family, many of whom we know our whole lives or their whole lives, we don't want to bring up old business. If you were angry at them in, 12th grade, now's really not a great time to bring it up. What's the point? Why would you choose to do that? How does it help you? When I work with clients, I'll frequently say to them, how does that help you? What is the benefit to you in saying that, in doing that? Then we can figure out together, does the benefit outweigh the damage it might do? Because we need to think about that. We need to frequently think about the pros and cons of saying things, of doing things. Why do we want to do it? It has to have a good reason. We have to have a good explanation for why we want to do something. And besides that, I love nature, and it was a great excuse to add a picture of a beautiful running river. I thought we could try that. How do we listen? We try to listen with getting the message. Listen to what the undertone is. It's not necessarily about the words. The words can be so much less important than what the message is. What are they trying to convey? What is the person you're speaking to really saying to you? Because really saying is so much different. Sometimes we can't say what's truly in our hearts outright. We have to figure out the right way to say it so that it can be heard. There was Chaim Ganat wrote these wonderful books on parenting, and there are other, and for sometimes books are great and sometimes they're less great. And we need to think about titles. So there were books, How to Talk to Your Child so they'll listen to you, How to Talk to Your Teenager, How to Talk so people will listen to you. how to be successful. How to be successful means how to get people to hear what you're saying and make it work. You know, when we talk about use your words, words are so powerful. And if we think about choosing our words, how we say it, when we say it, timing is so important. We know timing is everything in life, right? So you might not be the best time to discuss something. And it might be the most important time. So if you would say to someone who you care about, you know, I made my will. What do you think about it? Do you have a will? People don't want to talk about death, for sure. It's so anxiety provoking. And unfortunately, many of us have had to say goodbye to people we love. People we know have been sitting Shiva virtually. We've done telephone Shiva calls, we've done Zoom calls, we've done texting Shiva visits. All of these things are so important. And listening to what people are saying is so essential. So if you say, you know, we check to make sure our wills are in order and all that other stuff, and somebody says, you know, it's amazing what happened. 3 FedEx trucks came just within the last 15 minutes when we were on the phone. So what are they telling you? They're telling you, I do not want to talk about wills. Wills is not something I want to talk about. So then you've said your piece, and then you move on because you heard the message was, I'm not going there. I'm not talking about this. This is making me too anxious, stressed, whatever. So you said your piece, and then you can move on. So compromise, right? So hard. And now there are things that you might not be able to compromise on. If we're going to talk about, you can't wear half a mask. That just doesn't work. But you might be able to compromise on other things. So you might be willing to let people visit you, and if you're lucky enough to have a bathroom that's in a part of the house or apartment where you don't necessarily go, you might be okay letting people come into that bathroom. I never thought I would be doing a Zoom training discussing how people go to bathrooms, like crazy world. But think about it. Think about how you might be able to figure out to compromise. Families are far apart and missing each other terribly. So maybe you could each drive 2 hours and you can meet in a state park if that particular state has a state park that's open. And you can each bring your own picnic and you can sit near each other but not too close, and you can see each other. So then you're compromising. You're saying, I don't want to go to your house, or you won't let me in your house, but let's figure out how we can see each other. Let's plan this. It's not going to be simple. It's not going to be easy. But you have to decide, is it worth it? Is this something you're worth thinking about and doing on your own and figuring out together? Also, if you work on it together, then it's something that you're both invested in and you want to try to do it. Coping skills that can reduce your stress. So everybody on this Zoom is, I'm guessing, old enough to have filled their toolbox with some stress-reducing coping skills, right? We know what works for us. We know what doesn't work for us. And we know how long it works. So think about what you have used in the past that made you feel better. And then there are some coping skills that are short-term and some that are longer-term. So the breathing exercises. There are many different breathing exercises. The purpose of breathing exercises, when you inhale, hold your breath, and then exhale, we want to increase the oxygen in our brains so that we can calm down. So there are some simple ones where you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you exhale for 4 seconds, or you exhale for 8 seconds. Like, those are really easy. And since you're all on Zoom, I know you all use computers. So you can go to YouTube and you can learn almost anything. So you can put into YouTube breathing exercises. You can do, one of my personal favorites is visualization exercises. My clients tease me because I'll say, let's do a visualization exercise, you'll feel better. And they'll say, Faye, we will both feel better. We know you love visualization exercises. And it's true. I can go on vacation anytime I want because I can just close my eyes and I go through all 5 senses of where I want to be. I have different choices of where I want to take myself. Sometimes I go to a tree house. Sometimes I go back to my old sleepaway camp. Sometimes I go to a forest. It doesn't matter. You all go where you want. You can go to the beach. You can go to a planet. I had a client who created a castle with a moat, and that was her place of safety and relaxation. And they're all great as long as they work. And you can go there and stay as long or as short as you want. You can take people with you. You can be all alone. That's the pleasure of relaxation exercises. You get to pick. And again, be in touch with your body. Know where it feels good and how it feels. Physical exercise increases the endorphins in our body. So walk, run, ride a bike, play tennis, be in nature, do what feels good. Make sure you drink. To quote the Israelis who've been saying it forever, drink, hydrate. We don't want to put ourselves in danger because we're trying to relax ourselves, but it's really good to get whatever you can. I read recently about a man who completed a triathlon and he did all of his training on his terrace because he wasn't allowed to go anywhere. So he ran on his terrace and he exercised on his terrace. And we need to be creative. We need to have our little brains expanding themselves and trying things. Creative arts. It doesn't matter if you have any talent or no talent at all. Have fun. Do what you like. Do what makes you feel calm. Buy Play-Doh. I didn't include that, but playing in dirt. Lots of people are gardening because it's creative, it's relaxing, it gets you out of the house. Using clay, using Play-Doh, baking bread is one of the most popular activities. I don't know how many people have baked challah for the first time because they're home, they have time to do it. If you knead your dough rather than use a bread machine, it's also a relaxation technique because you're using your muscles a little bit differently. If you decided to start an exercise regimen, it doesn't matter what the exercise regimen is. It can be walking up and down your stairs 5 times a day. Whatever it is that's going to make you relax, just do it to take care of yourselves. That's the important part. Deciding what's important. So is it more important to be right or to have your friends, your family? You don't want to alienate people who you care about. So I love the phrase, agree to disagree. That's what it's about. We don't have to all have the same opinion. Unnecessary, ridiculous. We all have our own life experience. We all experience things differently. We might do it our way. We might do it somebody else's way. It's okay. It's absolutely fine. But just be respectful. And I picked this picture because it's a minefield. We have so many opportunities to step on a mine and say stupid things. And sometimes we're going to say stupid things. And not with intent. We don't want to hurt anybody. But we're people. We make mistakes. It's so important to be dan l'kaf zchut. Make the assumption that it wasn't done with intent to hurt someone. There was no malice intended. We didn't want to do this. We just made a mistake. It's okay. Like, be kind to yourselves and be kind to everybody else. That's what we need to be doing. We need to do it all the time, but we certainly need to be doing it now. Okay, so you've expressed yourself the right way. You have listened the right way. You have taken a deep breath before you call that particular relative, because you know that uncle is the guy who always pushes your buttons and you just can't handle it. And you're still having a hard time and you're still suffering, and you might be upset that you don't think they're suffering as much as you. And why is that fair? None of us can figure this out. We don't know why we suffer differently than anybody else. That's what Hashem had in mind. He figured out how we're going to do it. So you've tried, talk to people, talk to your rabbi, your rav, your yoetzet. Get some kind of hadracha, get some kind of recommendations. Talk to people you trust, people you respect, people whose opinion are valuable to you. They might be people you've spoken to in the past, or they might not be. Choose your advisors wisely, because we don't necessarily want to talk to someone just because they agree with you. If you want to really learn, talk to someone who might not agree with you, who might force you out of your box, who might force you to think about and look at things differently so that you can evaluate it. It's like watching a news program on a channel where you know you will disagree with them, or reading a newspaper you know is not on the same path as your opinions. It's okay. We can learn, we can listen. So figure out who you might want to talk to. Think of options that you might not have thought of. So you might never have thought of driving 2 hours and going to a park. That might not be your thing. Okay, so now what might be your thing? Somebody I know who's bored to tears has been driving to all sorts of different places just to eat, because they love to eat and it gives them a destination. So they refuse, again, I'm in New York, and they live in Brooklyn near us. They won't go out to eat in Brooklyn because it's not far enough. They are now creating destinations. So they might drive to New Jersey, they might drive to Long Island, they might drive to Connecticut, depending on like which states we're allowed to go to. You're going to look for opportunities. It's not something they did 5 months ago, but it's something they're doing now. They're doing things a little bit differently. Again, like I said before, people are looking to have their young adults move in with us at Mishkan, because it's not something they were planning to do yet, but it's something that they need to do now. So that's where we are. We're looking to think out of the box, or maybe the box doesn't exist anymore. I think now we have more like one of these amorphous amoebas. I think about the fact that the coronavirus is round with all of these like odd bumps. Like, yes, it is. Those bumps to me, I think they're painful. They're going in all sorts of directions. They're going to impact anybody and anyone who they touch. That's what we need to be doing. We need to channeling that little inner creativity. If you've tried the other things, or you don't want to try the other things, maybe you don't want your Rav or your Yoetzet to know so much about you. So call a mental health professional who you don't know, who can give you some kind of opportunity to explore what's going on. Don't expect the social worker, the psychologist, the psychiatrist to solve your problem, to tell you what to do. That's not our role. My role is to help people look at the situation, figure it out on their own, and help them move forward to be a better person than who they are, to be their best self. So I included resources to both the Jewish board, because I happen to know that we have really quality people here, relief resources, which will refer you to private practitioners nationwide, so it doesn't matter what state you're in. Oh, actually, Relief is international. I take that back. They make referrals to agencies and private practitioners. They have an office in Toronto. They have an office in Israel. I'll include this also, there are Jewish family services throughout the nation. So this slide, I apologize. I was being very New York centric, but there are Jewish family services everywhere. So I will add that. I'm not going to add the list of every Jewish family service. I'm going to leave that to you to Google Jewish family service with your city, and then you'll be able to do it. But going to therapy is great. You have somebody listen to you, pay attention to you, and help you figure things out for yourself. So I highly recommend it. Also, I included this since I'm at Mishkan because I know we are very unique here. We have people from around the country who live with us because we are a completely kosher facility. We are Shomer Shabbos. We have all the Chagim celebrated. We have the most beautiful backyard here at Mishkan, which has an in-ground swimming pool. Our houses are both here on campus and in the community. All of the homes are in Brooklyn, but we've had people from everywhere. During the virus, we had one young man who went home to his family for a month because they all needed to be together for a little bit, and now he's back home with us. So if you know somebody, but you have to be an adult to live with us. So that's part of the deal. And since time is running out, I wanted to thank you all for participating. I hope to those of you who submitted your questions in advance, I addressed them. If not, I included my email address, my private practice number, my number at Mishkan. Please don't be shy. I look forward to hearing from anybody and anybody who wants to speak with me, who wants to email me. It would be my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to be part of this Zoom conference. Think of it as part of your self-care. We should all be healthy and safe. And in Yirtzeh Hashem, next year, Tisha B'Av will be a celebration. Mashiach will have arrived. Thank you. Rebbitzin Steinig.
Thank you so much, Faye. We really appreciate you're taking so much time out to give us such wonderful strategies of awareness that we can use now, obviously, for COVID, and of course, beyond when we get past COVID. I just wanted to, Faye, as you're preparing materials for us, keep in mind that there are people on this Zoom beyond, as I told you, all over the United States and actually all over the world. So if you have any international resources, we would love to see those as well. So everybody, you'll be getting a copy of this PowerPoint later on, hopefully later on today, along with, of course, the recording. So you don't have to ask me for it. Just be patient. It's going to come to you. And with registration for next week, which I'll get to in a minute. Thursday, of course, as we all know, is Tisha B'Av, and we will not be having spirit programming that day, but don't think that the OU is just letting you alone. We have wonderful programming going on all day, both with Rabbi Weinreb and Rabbi Weil. So I have given you the registration link in several emails, and I will give it again to you today. I can tell you it will make for a very, very meaningful day to spend it with both of them. Now, Be'ezras Hashem, next week, our programming is going to include a return visit from Rena Yudkowsky, who did memory with us last month, and everybody was thrilled with it. She's going to do a session on Train Your Brain. That will be on Tuesday. And on Thursday, we'll be having a fascinating interview with my colleague, Rabbi Alan Kalinsky, the OU West Coast Director, who served for 28 years as a chaplain for the US Air Force. So I'm sure he's going to have a lot to tell us. I want to wish everyone a meaningful Tainus, and hopefully, as we said, next year, Tisha B'Av will be a simcha for us. Have a good Shabbos, be safe, and be healthy. Watch all of your emails for registration information. And again, thank you, Mrs. Wilbur. We really appreciate your program. Take care, everybody.